Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Kenny and Renny post-game show. I'm Ken Weeb, and I'll soon be joined by Sean Reynolds, who is live on location in Washington, D.C. We're having a few technical difficulties, but in the meantime, and in between time, we're going to get started here after the Winnipeg Jets secured a 2-1 overtime victory over the Nashville Predators. Nice job by the chat. We got a few folks in here already. We're going to let's go live to Sean and see what we can do here. No, not yet. Okay, we're going to bring in a couple of our favorites. Here come Jeff Hamilton and Scott Billick. Jeff, I don't think we're going to get the music this time, but I promise to play it before the night is out here. And also Scott Billick is going to come in. We're going to go quickly to the 3-box here. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for joining us. How's it going tonight?
I don't know, man. I usually use that music to pump me up, get me ready. I just feel like you're throwing. I feel like you just caught me walking out of the bathroom.
All right, let's.
I still don't have music.
Hang on a second here. Hang on a second.
Actually, I have music.
Oh, okay. Hang on a second, folks. Let's start this the right way here. Hang on a second. Dodging shot grenades. Move over, kiss someone else's ass on something. Gonna make Renny shout, and the show will overtime. Bring down the hammer.
There we go. Ready. Let's do this.
All right.
And the other part of your intro, usually it goes, and with Sean Reynolds together, we make the Kenny and Renny show. I have Sean's voice playing in my head, but I'm sure he'll join us.
I know.
Yes. Most importantly, welcome, gentlemen. Like I said, Sean is dealing with some technical difficulties. He's got a beautiful suit from Vittorio Rossi Clothiers that he hopefully will show us before the night is over. But if you're looking for a sharp-looking suit or anything in the dress clothes or even some casual, you can hit up Frank and the fellas and the entire crew over at Vittorio Rossi on Corridon. Jeff, let's start with you. What were your overall impressions of this 2-1 victory? What stood out, and what stood out maybe in the post-game commentary that we had from one Dylan DeMello, Adam Lowry, and Rick Bowness?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with majority of the people we spoke to after the game. I thought the Jets were the better team on the night. I don't know if I'd be throwing out 60-minute efforts in this one. I mean, I don't think it was a bad one. I certainly think the Jets outplayed the Predators. But it still felt like one of those games where, I felt like they weren't getting their feet moving, particularly early on. For those people who, I don't know if we want to get into the debate of fighting in hockey. For those that don't like it, I can tell you right now, the entire Canada Life Center certainly woke up. I thought that Adam Lowry dropping the gloves there was the first real spark to the game, and I thought set the tempo a little bit more for Winnipeg, woke them up. I mean, we all know Rick Bowness wants this team to play with passion and emotion. Certainly Pierre-Luc Dubois had a ton of that today. I felt like he was taking every opportunity he could get at, swiping people. It's one of those, I forget when exactly it was in the game, maybe the third period, second, certainly wasn't in the first, but when he got tangled up in the in the neutral zone and kind of brought an arm all the way over. Had there been a head there, I think we'd be talking about him being suspended potentially. But no, it certainly wasn't the case. I thought, obviously UC Saros was played great between the pipes for Nashville, gave them an opportunity to win the game, and same thing with Connor Hellebuyck. He wasn't as busy, but he still was big, came up big when he needed to. That's just become a luxury here in Winnipeg, obviously. And then certainly when you look at when you look at how the game ended, I think if anyone, if we were to put money on who was going to score the OT winner, it was going to be on Kyle Connor. I mean, a career high 11 shots, 14 shot attempts. I mean, this guy was buzzing around the net all night, and for him to have, it was quite fitting for me that he squeezed that puck through the pads of Saros, and then it just got over the line. It kind of was a microcosm of the entire game that up until that point, look at the Jets might be snake bit, but I'll let someone else go to the buffet at this point. But also my final note on that would be kudos to them for snapping that, what could have been a season high 3-game losing streak, get back in the win category and get back on now for the road here, where they've been a pretty good team. I think they've won 4 or 5 straight on the road, and they'll get an opportunity to add to that here over the next few days.
Over to you, Scotty Billick from the Winnipeg Winnipeg
So I'm
Sun.
used to Sean setting up with a good question and all that.
No, you got the same question that Jeff got. It's pretty open-ended. The buffet is open.
Man, and you know me, I just go straight for the food, so it doesn't matter.
Dig in.
Well, I agree with Jeff. I mean, I don't think that this game was, a 60-minute effort by the Jets. I think probably, you put 41 shots on against a team that's struggling right now, and you probably want to score more than. Yeah, you look at some of the games from last night that I was watching, and it's like good teams were beating up on bad teams. The Jets didn't really beat up on Nashville, at least on the scoreboard. I thought they played a really good game, though. I mean, I think that's, I think that's the one thing. You were looking for a response on this game. You didn't get it last game, or at least not to the. Rick Bowness liked the last game, parts of it at least. I wasn't as bullish on the last game as he was, but. I like tonight's game. There was parts of it that were, the Jets. It was the first period that were just hemming, or maybe it was the second, but they were just they started off the period just hemming Nashville into the zone. It looked like a power play, and it looked like Nashville was just clearly the second best team on the ice, and I think that looked out for much of the game that way. But the Jets were taking a lot of shots that were. From the outside, and nothing was getting through. There wasn't a lot of bodies in front. Credit to Nashville. They did a good job getting in front of pucks. UC Saros was, very good tonight as he was, it was very good last year. He had a bit of a, struggle this year, but yeah, I agree with Jeff. Like I thought the game turned after the bad hit on Nate Schmidt. I still think the league looks at that hit. We'll probably get into it. And the reason, even if Adam Lowry is saying that he thought it was clean and he would do it himself, as he said.
But what he said was he would finish that same check. I don't. I think that was.
Well, that's essentially what I'm saying. He would do it himself. But yeah, I know what you mean. But even Rick Bowness said that's hockey, right? And
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure the league. I'm sure the league will look at it. I am not anticipating a suspension based on the Jets' reaction. I mean, if they thought it was a bad hit, I think we would have heard. Jeff, you were in there. Don't you think people would have been up in arms?
Protocol?
Yeah, no, I think.
I don't think it makes a difference if he's in concussion protocol.
I think particularly Adam Lowry would have said something
exactly
different than what he said. Adam Lowry is one of the most reasonable people in the NHL.
You're right.
Like he's talked about, and I'm not saying that it couldn't be looked at. I'm with you, Kenny. I don't think it's going to result in any kind of supplementary penalty or any kind of suspension to it, but it might be a warning. They do a lot of these things, right? They go and look at these hits and then they relay messages to teams, even if there isn't a penalty, right? Even if there isn't a suspension or anything like that. There's just an awareness, and in that case, I think it was finishing the check. But anyways, sorry, Scott, go on.
No, and I think the thing that stuck out the most to me is it was a 1-1 game. And the Jets played really good in those final 2 periods, I thought. And then the last couple of games they've been a little loose, right? Rick Bowness was asking for the team to tighten up, and they did. I thought they played a good, solid 40 minutes to end that game. Connor Hellebuyck made a couple saves. I think in the third period there, he made that one sprawling save to keep the game tied late in the third there with his left pad, I believe it was. But this is the type of game that the Jets have to win, right? If they're struggling to get it past, they can't get frustrated. I think, Jeff, you asked that question to Rick Bowness or some derivative of that question, just about getting frustrated and kind of handling that, or not getting frustrated, even though you're getting, you're not getting a goal or whatever. And I thought the Jets did a good job of handling those emotions. And it's interesting because just to go back to the fight.
Oh, hang on. Don't dig into that. We're going to dig into that in a minute here afterward. We're going to dig in. We just need a little bit of semblance here. We're going to go. We're going to go quickly to the lamplighter, and I'm going to choose the lamplighter, but I want you guys to help me out with the "We've Got You Covered" play of the game.
Okay.
But I'm going to start with the lamplighter, and you both touched on it. I'm going with the Kyle Connor overtime winner, even though it just snuck through the 5-hole and trickled over the goal line. Kyle Connor being rewarded for his 11 shots on goal and 14 shot attempts, scoring his 12th of the year. Great drop pass by Adam Lowry, and for me, that's why it is my lamplighter of the game. We're looking forward to having many of the folks in the chat room here over at the Trans-Canada Brewing Company tap room over at 1290 Kenniston on Sunday for the Kenny and Renny Christmas party, and we have a 8-pack available here. You folks, guys and gals, know the drill. Send
Jim
me
Bender at the cameo.
send me your thoughts on the lamplighter. Last game's winner is Greg Friesen. He is the winner of a frosty 8-pack of lamplighter. Greg, get in touch with me on the Twitter machine or by email, and we'll get the voucher for the 8-pack over to you. And shifting gears, you guys know the drill. You are regular listeners. Jeff, I'll start with you. What's your "We've Got You Covered" play of the game, sponsored by our OGs, the Johnston Group?
So since you're gonna do Dylan DeMello so dirty with the lamplighter, I wanted to say.
Hey, but I'm just trying to leave the floor open for some others here.
First goal in 87 games, and second as a Winnipeg Jet in 163. I think were the stats we were throwing out after that goal. But the cover game, I think it was Adam Lowry. I think the drop in the gloves, it set the tempo. I mean, we can probably spend an entire section talking about Adam Lowry.
And we will, right after this.
So I won't go into, his overall night, but there's certainly at that point in time, I think, look, like I said off the top, Rick Bowness wants this team to play with emotion. He wants them to play with passion. And I think that was missing in the early stages of the game in what was an otherwise pretty sleepy first period. So for him to set the tone, to stick up for his teammates, to get the crowd into it too. I mean, anyone who was in attendance here was a standing ovation for Adam Lowry after that fight. So I thought that was, you can say the pitch line got you covered moment of the game, but certainly I think Adam Lowry counts for that one.
Anything to add, Scotty? Or
no, let's just talk about Lowry. So you can throw to me or whatever.
Okay, here before we get to there, that's our "We've Got You Covered" play of the game, proudly sponsored by our good friends over at the Johnston Group. We appreciate their support, and I will stop covering your head, Scotty, for the rest of it here, and let's get right into it. I know we've talked briefly about the hit itself. Jeff, let's start with you in terms of the response from Adam Lowry. For those who may have missed it. On the ensuing face-off, Adam Lowry whispered into Morgan Barron's ear and said, "I'm going to need you to take the draw." He lined up beside Tanner Jeannot, and I think he tapped him on the pads. And I'm not sure if there were words exchanged or there was just a nod, but as soon as the puck was dropped, the two heavyweights squared off and got involved in a pretty epic tilt. Jeff, what did you see in terms of the response from Adam Lowry and the reaction of his teammates from said response?
Typical response from the guy who is one of a few players on this team who is, I don't want to say not afraid, but is maybe looked at to drop the gloves, to have that physical presence. I mean, that was something that, Adam Lowry said after the game. I mean, he said, look, that's a play, as you mentioned earlier, Ken, that's a play that I'm going to finish every day. And and he even said about Tanner Jeannot, he didn't have to answer the bell. He gave him respect for answering for that hit, right? And I thought overall with just the answer in general, like this team needed that boost, as I already mentioned. I feel like, this team has a new culture, it has a new belief system. It's one and for all. Even if you heard Dylan DeMello's comments after the game, he says, "You come after one of us, you come after all of us." How many times have we heard that this season? Definitely a few different times. But Adam Lowry's game was not limited to that fight. I mean, clearly he had the assist on the game-winning goal. Helped develop that play that led to the game winner. He's a huge part of the penalty kill. A group that was disappointed in their effort against Vegas, allowing 2 power play goals against in the third period, and was ultimately the difference in that one. To come back and go perfect 3 for 3 in this one was the right answer, obviously. And in particular, if you look at Adam Lowry specifically, it's his hard work on the puck that cuts that double minor short by, yes, just 21 seconds, but also put the Jets on the power play and shifted that momentum, not just from a great kill, but then putting the power play on there. I mean, look, we could talk forever about how great Adam Lowry is as a teammate. I mean, I think he's the ultimate teammate. He's the guy that, and he doesn't have to, be a raw guy, even though he is the kind of guy who can pull, who can have conversations with players. That's why he got an A this year. this is a guy who I think brings it every single night. You want to talk about consistency? This is a guy who, he's not going to be your 30-plus goal scorer every night. He's not paid to be your 30-plus goal scorer every night, but he's paid to be that physical presence. He's paid to bring a consistently hard game to play against, and we're certainly seeing that from Lowry this season, and particularly tonight.
Scotty?
Yeah, I'll take it in a bit of a different direction, although I agree with everything Jeff's saying. I just wanted to, I think the fact that Adam went and did that and Jeannot, you got to give credit to both guys, right? Like, that game could have got out of hand if neither of them would have done what they did. And the refs didn't, or the linesmen didn't get in the way. They didn't stop it. They just let it happen, right? And, part of this game, and we've seen this before, I think it was Toronto versus Winnipeg, where all the stuff was going on, was that last season. And the game got out of the refs' hands, right? If you just let the two players just kind of deal with, or at least one of them, the guy that made the hit, and whoever the big guy is that goes out and fights them, it was done from there, right? You didn't see it. Nobody was headhunting after that. There wasn't a bunch of scrums and a pile of that. Both teams still continued to play hockey. And so the game didn't get away from the Jets. And I thought it was good by Adam Lowry to go and do that. And I agree with Jeff. I mean, you look at it, Jeff said it to me when we sit beside each other in the press box, and he was, it's one of those things where, people don't like fighting, or that may be the narrative that you hear, but it was crazy in here. People want to see that. And I think part of it is because the fans feel the same way as the players do. Like, they want to see them stick up for their guy. And that's what Adam Lowry did. And he's one of the few guys. Brendan Dillon will do it too. But it's one of those things. You don't see those hits that you see. You saw the Jacob Petruba hit from a couple weeks ago now, the Ryan Reeves hit from last night. They're big hits, and people don't expect them anymore, right? This is a league that is really kind of, they haven't even really gotten rid of it. Just organically, the way the game's sped up and the skills gotten better, the room for players that do the things that Reeves does, or Trouba or whatever, it's small now. And so when you see a big hit like that, clean or not clean, we can debate that all day long, but it's a shock to a lot of people, and you want to see it. You want to see an answer to it, and you saw that tonight. And I thought Adam Lowry did a good job. Tanner Jeannot is a big body and a tough customer when it comes to fighting, and Lowry definitely held his own. And as he should. He's fought Ryan Reeves before too. It's Adam Lowry's a hell of a fighter as well. But it was just, I thought it settled the game down. I thought that fight settled the game down after a big hit, and as much time that Nate Schmidt was on the ice, kind of face down, kind of dealing with whatever injury he was dealing with there. It settled the game down and let the game continue to be a really good game instead of just getting out of hand.
And for those that missed it, Rick Bowness saying after the game he did not have a full update on Nate Schmidt's status, whether he would be available for the road trip or not. He did, confirm Schmidt had been placed into concussion protocol. So, to me, that didn't confirm the concussion, but I have a hard time believing Nate Schmidt is going to be in the lineup this weekend. And oddly enough, in terms of timing, Kyle Capobianco, we believe, is one of the people dealing with an illness right now. He would normally be first in, and with Logan Stanley already on the shelf. And unfortunately for Ville Heinola, he's missed the last 4 games with a I believe it's non-COVID related illness as well. So I think that would probably put Declan Chisholm to the front of the call-up line. If they wanted more of a veteran guy, they may go Ashton Sontner, and you could go Leon Gavanka. But I think that probably means it's hard to envision Ville Heinola going from missing 4 games to being inserted into the Jets lineup, even though normally he would probably be first in here. Just a quick one here. Roy Mack makes the point. Nate Schmidt was being pursued on the forecheck. He goes for the wheel play around the net, and he has no idea that Tanner Jeannot is coming. I don't believe it's blind. It's not a blindside hit, but he comes from the blind side and drills him head on. So I think that was probably
kind of charging, though. No,
Oh no, he didn't. He was gliding. That's not charging for me. I do not think that's charging
predatory
at all.
Then you see it predatory from him, guy coming down from the blue line. Sensing that
Nate put him in a dangerous. He did not come, Scotty. He did not come down from the blue line
Wow.
He was below the circle, and he glided in and finished his check. So I didn't see charging. I mean, that would be, I guess, the only thing that you could. Now, the debate is, was there head contact? Yes, but I don't know for certain if the body contact came before the head contact in terms of principal point of contact. That seemed to be the debate for me. And it didn't seem like the Jets thought it was the principal point of contact, because we would have heard about it in the room afterward. At least that's my impression. But that's where things are at in terms of the injury. And as we shift gears quickly, guys, and I mean, speaking of injuries, I mean, were either one of you surprised that Blake Wheeler returned to the game after that Josh Morrissey shot that was tipped by Pierre-Luc Dubois and caught him in a sensitive area? I mean, did you think Blake would be back for the third? I mean, we've seen him come out of the coffin like the Undertaker on several occasions. The most critical one being in Dallas when he jammed into the open door. Yeah. That to me was the craziest of all of the comebacks. But Jeff, start with you. What do you think of Blake coming back and what he did after he returned?
I just want a quick comment on the Schmidt hit. I
Sure.
think if you look at the preview, he kind of sees it last second, right? He knows it's coming.
Yep.
He looks like he braces. He brings his hands up a little bit. He dips his head a little bit, which I don't know if that works it probably worked against him there. I see some comments here too about, if he's in concussion protocol, does that mean it's a head hit? You can get a concussion on a shoulder-to-shoulder hit. I mean, there was head contact. I don't know if I'm with you, Kenny. I don't know if the principal contact is the head in that situation. I mean, again, I go back to what Adam Lowry said, right? If he doesn't think if it's a dirty hit, then I don't know, why we should be arguing whether it is. I mean, certainly you can have your opinion if it is. I tend to lean it on a little bit more of an unfortunate result of a hard and heavy hit. Anyways, as for Blake Wheeler,
and sorry, quick one here. Sorry, T. Shu, I disagree with this completely. T. Shu says they will look at it, elbow to the head, not even close to an elbow. You can see in the replay, Jeannot he makes so certain that the elbow stays down and it's the shoulder delivering the hit. That is not an elbow under any circumstance to me whatsoever. But again, we can agree to disagree. But I did not see an elbow there. And again, if the Jets thought it was an elbow to the head, A, I think they would have gone berserk, and B, they would have been complaining about the hit after the game.
Yeah, and so as far as Blake Wheeler goes, I mean, the only surprise for me in all that was that he didn't come back in the 8 minutes of the
right. Sorry, yes.
So,
yes.
So I mean, I think I was, I don't know if concern is the word, but I think you're wondering if he's going to come back in the third, because there was so much time, leading, left in the second period that he didn't come back. I was expecting him, I think it's a good sign in a lot of ways with what you saw from him when he immediately retreat to the bench. Usually that's a stinger or something that's not well. It's way worse, obviously, when you see a guy like Nate Schmidt who's, on the ice still getting work with the trainers. So, yeah, I think my only surprise was that. I think Dylan DeMello had some funny comments afterwards talking about it's a good thing he has 3 kids already. I think Rick Bowness suggested it was in that area, so I think it's safe to say he was certainly holding his groin. When he got onto the bench and went down, you could see the hand kind of, I don't know if it was the left or right side, I forget now, but you could certainly see that. But, I think this is a guy who we've seen, as you mentioned, come back from way, way worse, right? I mean, this is a guy, I forget what game or year it was, but, we got caught up in the bench and looked like he, would ruptured something like internally and then came back and probably scored and did well. I mean, this is what we've come to expect from Blake Wheeler, to play through injuries, to play through tough situations. And as for how when he came back, I thought he was okay. There was a moment there where I think we were looking at each other like, is this vintage Wheeler, when he drove wide and then came into for a pretty quality scoring opportunity there. And that obviously followed what I thought was interesting when he blew a tire. Coming in there, you didn't know if there was some freezing involved or whatever that was. But but I mean, clearly, if anyone's going to come back from any kind of issue, injury related, it's 26, and certainly we saw that again tonight.
How about for you, Scotty? What'd you see from Wheeler?
Yeah, no surprise that he came back, and I agree with Jeff that the only surprise was that he didn't come back sooner, right? I mean, Blake Wheeler. The 3 things that have slowed Blake Wheeler down or made him miss a game in his career are COVID, a concussion, and his knee bending backwards. And those are the only 3 things. So he couldn't skate, he wasn't allowed to play, and in the other one he also wasn't allowed to play with the concussion, because I think Blake Wheeler would probably play through that too if he was allowed to, and he probably would have played through COVID too if he was allowed to. I mean, before he hit 1,000 games, we were going over like he had missed. I remember it was like 5 or 6 games in his whole career before last season, or 2 seasons ago. Last season it was. And one of the couple of games that he missed was, the coach, or Paul Maurice, basically held him out, because they wanted to get him rested for the playoffs. So, yeah. So, but yeah, no, I mean, Blake Wheeler is as tough as they come. And DeMello said it best maybe after the game. I mean, we are a little more privy to it, doing what we do, that Blake plays through a lot of things that maybe don't always show up on the TV or whatever. But he does. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this guy's played. I mean, what was this quote a couple of years ago? If I'm here, I'm 100%, even though he clearly wasn't 100%.
Hang on
and so
a second here. We've had this debate before. If I'm here, you can treat me as though I'm 100%.
Sure,
he
whatever.
did not say he was 100%.
Right.
And that meant that was your
enough.
clue that he was not 100%.
Right. But I mean, my point is the guy plays through anything, right? Anything
Good
where
point.
he can physically remain vertical, he'll play through. And hats off to Blake Wheeler. I mean, I don't know if any of us would come back after. We'd be all going to what's one of those guys? Dr. J. Bonifay? Is that his name? We might have an emergency.
To finish the job, or what?
Yeah, no scalpel, no incision, right? Like any of that. So no, but yeah, I think that's what Blake does. I mean, he's the one guy who will play through anything, and not every guy has the pain tolerance to do that sort of thing. And so, full credit to Blake for coming back, and like Jeff said, went vintage Wheeler as he dropped that shoulder and went to the net. So.
And don't think for a second that didn't motivate his teammates.
Oh,
you know what I mean? I mean,
not every time, right? Yeah.
Okay, you guys have been crushing me here for not choosing Dylan DeMello's goal here. So let's just talk about Dylan DeMello in general. I had him kind of pegged. The reason why I went in that direction, I was going to go with Dylan DeMello for We've Got You Covered, considering he had the meteoric, somebody mentioned in the chat room, Haley's Comet, the first goal at 87 games. Second of all, on a 4-on-4, what is Dylan DeMello doing standing in front of the blue paint? That's what I actually wanted to know. But as he told us, Jeff, after the game, you got to get to the blue paint to score. He's just fortunate the Jets had possession. And what a pass by Kyle. Man, what a shift overall by the Jets on that one, the cycle shift. But what a pass by Connor, and what an effort by Dylan DeMello to dive out and sprawl out and convert the goal. So don't worry, Dylan DeMello, we were going to talk about it, but I had you kind of pegged for the We've Got You Covered in this situation instead of the lamplighter. But given the circumstances, let's Scotty, we'll start with you, then go back to Jeff. What do you think of Dylan DeMello's game overall? I think, as some folks are pointing out, I think he may have led all Jets in. Was it? No, maybe not. 3 shots on goal and 6 attempts for DeMello in just under 21 minutes. What did you see from him, just in general, not just in terms of scoring the goal itself?
Another solid game, right? I mean, he had a couple of so-so games where we're starting to think, well, maybe change the pairings up again or whatever. But I thought he's one of the most. He's the perfect complement, I think, to Josh Morrissey, right? Because Josh Morrissey's moving up the ice, you have a dependable stay-at-home defenseman that is going to cover off. And now this team obviously has the forwards that are coming back and doing that sort of thing. But I just find Dylan DeMello to be, he does all the little things right in the defensive zone. And he wasn't afraid. I mean, that goal kind of gave him some confidence. How many shots did he take after that, or at least attempts where he's trying to, he was feeling it after. I think he was still kind of rolling off that. You don't see the offensive side of Dylan DeMello all that much. Every 30 or 40 games, he'll do a couple rushes up the ice, and try and take try and get a sniff for some offense there. But no, I just find him, he's so dependable. And you could argue, well, he might be the guy that, if the Jets were looking to make a move or whatever, clear some cap space, whatever, he might be the guy. But he's such a good partner with Morrissey, and the fact that they went back to Dylan DeMello when it wasn't working with Neil Pionk on that and trying to find his diversity. I think that's a credit to what Dylan DeMello brings to that pairing, and it helps that pairing be better. I mean, I think the analytics show that. I haven't looked at them in a couple of games, but it's just one of those things where Dylan DeMello, yeah, he's Josh Morrissey's Scottie Pippen, right? Like, I think that's what he's good at, and they play really well together. And so, to see him score is fine, but I think his biggest benefit is what he does defensively. And yeah, I had no idea what he was doing up there on the thing, especially this league. He was literally on his ass on the in the front of the net and gets the goal. It was a good goal, but I really like him. So
I'm going to go Dylan DeMello is more John Paxson or Steve Kerr. I'm not going to give him the Scottie Pippen treatment, Scotty Billick, but I'll be happy to give you the 3-pointer from downtown.
What about
maybe
John Stockton?
John
Stockton
no.
Greg Ostertag, yeah, double zeros. Yeah,
no. How about over to you, Jeff? What do you think of the influence and maybe the pairing in general? But just the role that Dylan DeMello plays, and we know that Morrissey's had this unbelievable offensive season, but maybe the role that he's played since those two have been back together here.
I'm with Maul. When do we start the Dylan DeNorris run here? Tongue firmly in cheek there. That's a good one. But no, I mean, I think coaches love consistency. They love trust. They love those, they love those players that they know are going to go out there and do exactly what's expected of them. They're not going to do anything more. Well, maybe a bit more tonight, but scoring the goal. They're certainly not going to do anything less. And I think that's exactly what you get with Dylan DeMello. It was funny. I think I was kind of saying what the odds were of him being a trade piece about 30 seconds before he notched that goal. Yeah. Just kind of spitballing out ideas. Nothing with the idea that this guy's headed anywhere or anything like that. Just being a sturdy D-man. I mean, to your point, Scott, I think he's the perfect complementary piece to Josh Morrissey. And in a weird way, he's kind of the stable piece to that pairing that Josh Morrissey was when he first got into the league with Dustin Byfuglien. It was like Byfuglien was known as this great mentor, right, of younger players, but he was just like, sorry, man, you're young in your career. I'm going to go up the ice. I'm going to be the one that goes end to end. You be that solid D-man that is, knows his assignments, is incredibly great on the defensive side of the puck. And now we're really seeing, him flourish, Josh Morrissey, because of guys like Dylan DeMello, right? Guys who aren't looking for the offense. I will say this, though, after he scored that goal, anyone else see that he got a little bit horny for another one? It was like he was buzzing around the net. He was, you mentioned the blue paint, but he looked like he was in prime position. Like, he felt like he had channeling his inner Erik Karlsson there for a little bit. That whatever. But good human being too, good person. Has a sneaky sense of humor, apparently, according to the players, and is always willing to have the boys over. I caught that in a Jets video at some point. So just not spitting out a lot of the offensive, guru that we saw tonight, but certainly a reliable guy back there, and is creating, is a key piece to that back end, and will be a key piece to that back end if the Jets, as they continue to roll here, is fighting for top spot in the Central.
Yeah, right.
One Kenny.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
He's Josh Morrissey. He's Toby Enstrom. There you go. All right, go ahead.
Sure, but you made the ball.
Oh, you're gonna argue with
hang
that
on
one
a second. No, I'm not arguing with anything. But you made the bauble with the Bulls. You basically called him the second superstar on the team. So I understand where you were going in Sure, he's the second guy in the pairing. Scotty was the defensive player of the year and a 25-point scorer. I mean, Dylan DeMello is a stabilized. He could be Bill Wennington, maybe, like the guy who comes off the bench and provides a secondary piece of complimentary work. But anyways, that's for all the folks who love the Chicago Bulls.
Let's move on.
You're gonna nail a basketball reference before the end of this that Kenny's gonna agree with, and that's how we're gonna close this.
Yeah,
story.
exactly.
I'm just gonna keep trying.
Hang on a second. We're gonna just quickly before we get to his Dylan DeMello's defense partner. Before we get to that, for the folks watching live and for those of you who check it out later on in the podcast, if you're in the realty market, if you're looking to buy, you're looking to sell, you're looking to test out, see what what houses are worth in your area. If you're considering putting your house on the market eventually, you can check out our main man Lou Furlan of Royal LePage Dynamic Realty. You can reach him at 204-791-9971 or at the office 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOUFURLAN.ca, and his email www.loufurlan.ca. Helping you is what I do, and we thank Lou Furlan for his support, for being a great human,
DeMello
for being a great
Lou
realtor. Lou Furlan is a great
can't
supporter.
disagree with that.
Well, Lou is a great human. So
the Lou Furlan of the Winnipeg Jets.
That's right. There it is.
Hang on, yeah. But Lou Furlan is actually the Michael Jordan of realty, Scotty. So that's another miss. That's another miss for you. So, but we appreciate the effort. Josh Morrissey. First of all, Josh Morrissey pulls away on a breakaway. 127 into his shift in overtime, beats Saros, rattles it off the crossbar, looks to the sky in disbelief, and then has to look for the oxygen tank because he was out there for 127. What a shift there by Morrissey. For some reason, he had the assist taken away in overtime. I'd like to go look at the replay. Yeah. I guess he must not have touched it. Either way, 28 assists on the season for Morrissey. Jeff, start with you. We talk about him every single game here, but what'd you see tonight, and what stands out in the bigger, wider scope here? Because I know you had a good chat with him over in Chicago on this last road trip.
Yeah, and we talked about it on one of the previous shows too after Chicago. But it's just a guy that's, look, every single player in this league, every single professional athlete wants one thing, and it's opportunity. And getting an opportunity and taking advantage of an opportunity are two very different things. And while Josh Morrissey has had a lot of opportunity with this organization since he got here, and certainly over the last few years, he got an added opportunity this year that he hadn't really tasted under Paul Maurice, and that was that offensive side of his game. And it's painful to hear as Josh Morrissey gains more recognition over his play this season, as he gets into that Norris Trophy conversation, people who obviously have never been in Winnipeg and don't know much about Josh Morrissey talking about how he's entered the league as a defensive defenseman. You know what I mean? This guy had like 196 points or something in 220-something WHL games. This guy knew, his game was built around offense. And what I think was particularly special about this season, obviously the points are incredible. The fact that Josh Morrissey is leading the team in points, that's in and of itself a pretty incredible feat. That he set a new career high for assists already, that he's 5 points away from eclipsing his last high of 37 points in a season. That's going to be wiped out in no time here. The fact that he hasn't gone, what is the stat? He hasn't gone a consecutive game without scoring a point, and he's on 7 straight games of points right now. All of that is awesome. But what I think is really great about his emergence, if you will, on the offensive side is he's bringing the rest of the D with him. I know I made that point about having a guy like DeMello and his situation with Byfuglien earlier in his career, but I think he is showing them the value of gaining the rush. He's doing exactly what Rick Bowness wants, and I think we've seen some comments here about the Jets' forecheck and how more aggressive it is this year than previous years. A huge part of that is the willingness of the defenseman to break those old habits of not joining the rush and joining them. I mean, we see it with Brendan Dillon. We see it with, I know I'm going away from Josh Morrissey right now, but I do think, we saw it with DeMello a couple times today. We see it with, pretty much everybody on that blue line, and it starts with Josh Morrissey. I mean, that's the momentum. I think in a lot of ways, the Jets forwards in previous years have been caught watching a lot, right? Wanting someone else to get the puck or do it or get in on the forecheck hard, when you have the D-men, particularly Josh Morrissey, leading the way in a lot of nights because he's not thinking, he's just going. And certainly there has to be support from the forwards, and we've seen that, of course, when the D-men go up. But Josh Morrissey, for me, has just been, again, he's been an incredible player on the ice. He's a complete leader off the ice. He's not afraid to share his feelings and to talk about, the differences in previous years and what they need, much like we've seen from Mark Scheifele this year, a little more open, right? And you can tell he's having a lot of fun. We all know how well documented, he lost his father a couple of years ago and had that down season. He had a bounce back season last year, but this year he's just taken it to a completely new level. And, I don't think you could be happier for a better person than Josh Morrissey.
Anything to add on that subject, Scotty? Otherwise, I'm going to shift gears here.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add is that, Josh Morrissey has done all the things that Jeff has talked about and we've all talked about, and he hasn't sacrificed his defensive play. And, I think that was kind of one of the things that happened under Paul Morrissey. It was either, you were more offensive and you let go a little bit defensively, or you're more defensive and you let go offensively. I think under Rick Bowness and the system they've had in place and just the green light, as Rick Bowness has said, it's allowed Josh Morrissey to do what he used to do. And Jeff brought up the WHL days. Watched a lot of Josh Morrissey early on. He played against Brandon Weekings a couple times. And exactly. And, so I was out in Brandon for a couple of those games. And Josh, this is what Josh did. He moved up and down the ice. He skated well. But he had a knack for the net. He would shoot, he would drive the net, he would do a lot of those things. Josh has talked about this before, where he came into the NHL and he kind of knew what he had to do. He said it last week, that there's not a lot of room, there wasn't a lot of room for him to, kind of be the offensive guy he had, Dustin Byfuglien and guys like that on the team. And so he did what it is. And then I thought, the way that he was playing, especially with Jacob Trouba for a while there, they were a really good shutdown pair, and that's what they excelled at. And then when Dustin Byfuglien left and Josh had to basically, prop up whoever he was given every night, it made it very difficult for him to be an offensive player. When he had to basically think about defense all game. Now he doesn't have to do that as much, or if at all, because there's a lot more trust within this team, I think, and trust between himself and the coach and the coaching staff here. To play the game that he knows how to play. And I think it's impressive how quickly Josh has kind of picked that up and run with it, right? Like, you could think of, in a lot of situations where Josh could, default to playing it defensive and not being, not looking up the ice. But I think he's done a really good job of, just feeling free out there to do what he wants. So, yeah, I think the best, the most impressive thing to me is that he hasn't sacrificed any other part of his game to be more offensive. I think he's added that, I guess, back to his game, and he's done so seamlessly, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the thing with Morrissey here tonight, this was the second time in 2 weeks the Jets have had to play, the last two periods for certain with five defensemen. We wondered if Morrissey might hit 30 minutes tonight. 31 shifts for 27-35. One shot on goal, 7 shot attempts, 2 block shots. So another impressive effort there. Gents, just based on how it went, just kind of luck of the draw. When we left when we left the Jets room after the game on Tuesday night, after that 6-5 loss to the Jets had to the Vegas Golden Knights, Murat Atesh and I were walking back towards the media room to catch Rick Bowness. It was 9:55 on the clock. Connor Hellebuyck was already leaving the room and leaving to get to his car. So that meant a very quick shower and a very angry Connor Hellebuyck departing the rink. So to me, I was pretty sure he was going to be dialed in. And then lo and behold, kind of got caught a little bit flat-footed on the Forsberg one-timer. But after that, he wasn't, and again, he didn't have a ton of work up to that point. It was his first shot on goal, I think. But after that, Connor didn't get tested overly often, but I thought he was really sharp. Jeff, what do you think of the way he responded? Is not how I mean it, but it's not often that Connor Hellebuyck allows 9 goals in 2 games. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination it was 9 bad goals. I think there were a couple of rebounds that he would like back. I think there were some goals with traffic. I just thought that he was a little bit... Rick Bowness used the word out of sync to describe the forwards and the defense. I think he could have easily said that applied to Connor Hellebuyck on Sunday. Even the greatest at their job have a bad day at work occasionally. I think Tuesday that probably applied to Connor Hellebuyck. I'm just curious, Jeff, what you thought about his, the way he played tonight after a, kind of below his gold standard game on on Tuesday for sure. And, I don't think that Sunday was a bad game, but Tuesday he just seemed a little bit off to me.
I don't have the stats in front of me, but how many times we read his record after a loss? You know what I mean? This is very much like the Jets this season. This has kind of been the story of Connor Hellebuyck his entire career. If he has an off game, this is a guy who, we talk about Mark Scheifele being a hockey nerd, and I know some comments in here. Mark Scheifele, I thought too, had a great game tonight. I thought he was buzzing. I thought he was around the puck. He was fun to watch, and what was a 2-1 win. But yeah, Connor Hellebuyck, he's doing what he's done all season. Obviously, it's a tough game against Vegas to be sure, but against a team where this game could have easily turned on its head. We talked about vintage Wheeler, vintage Jets would have been allowing a goal after pinning this team in their own zone for long stretches. And then giving up. One of the Jets' power plays led to an open break for Nashville that needed to be stopped by Connor Hellebuyck. Bowness said it again today. These timely saves. He's coming up with the saves at the right times in moments where there's going to be an inevitable push from the other team. Right? You're not going to dominate for all 60 minutes, and you need your goalie to be your best player in those moments. And Connor Hellebuyck has certainly been that and more, and particularly on special teams. You talk about how great the penalty kill is. We talk about how great the penalty kill is this year. We talk about how the Jets are in the top 5 for allowing the fewest goals. Yeah, that's better defensive play, but that's also lights out hockey from Connor Hellebuyck, and we've seen it all season. In fact, he's probably gotten more help in the last month and a bit than he certainly got in the first month and a bit. So, this is a guy who I think last year, whether you want to call it an off year, whether you want to call it, a busy year in life in general for him, having a child. Anyone who's had a child understands, you might have all the money in the world to take care of that kid, but it changes your mindset. It's something is on your mind. And I'm certainly not blaming him for having a kid for a down year. It's just the reality of being a grown man in that situation. And this year he's been nothing short of spectacular. You talk about bouncing back from last game, his bounce back this season. He is the clear, I don't know if he's certainly up there, if not first and heavy in the race for the Vezina Trophy this year. And, bouncing back has been his, as good as he's been this year, bouncing back has been his bread and butter pretty much his entire career.
Anything to add on that subject matter, Scotty?
No, he's the best goaltender in hockey right now. I think he had a couple bad games. Maybe not, like you said, Kenny, I don't think they were all on him. But by his standards, he was a 935. He dropped to a 926. That's how good his season's going. And now he's back up to a 927 after tonight. He's still the top goalie in the league in goals saved above expected, which is, again,
fourth going into today, I thought, or wasn't he? Or?
He's on 5-on-5. He's first. I don't care about all situations.
Overall. Why not?
Yeah, I don't care about all situations.
Goalies don't play in all situations.
I'm just saying, at 5-on-5, where they need him to be good, he is the best goalie in hockey. He's also one of the best goalies in hockey in all situations. Yes. I'm not going to get into an analytics argument, but at 5-on-5,
the Jets have been terrible on the penalty kill. I would argue they need him to be equally great or better while shorthanded, based on their struggles while shorthanded.
I agree, but this team is still giving up a lot of shots 5-on-5, right? Okay. So either way, point is, he's the best goalie in hockey based on the analytics. He's got this best. I think he's tied for the most wins, or he has the most wins now in the game. He was second maybe in shutouts. His save percentage is right up there. I think minus Allmark is the only guy with a better save percentage than him right now of starting goaltenders in the NHL. But you look at the body of work. It was funny because we all thought that, I said this before, we all thought that Connor Hellebuyck had a down year last year, and he was still a positive goalie in most analytics. But this year he's come back with a vengeance, and like Jeff said, I don't know who else. You can put Allmark up there. And I think he should be up there, based on the season he's having in Boston there. But, I think for what the Jets give up sometimes for Connor Hellebuyck to save, I don't think there's a better goalie in the world that you would want at this point, when it's 2-on-1 coming the other way, when it's late. You saw the save tonight in the third period where he gets the pad on it. That's a big save at a time of the game where they could have, checked into the Heartbreak Hotel, right? It could have been one of those games, as Jeff said, where, the Jets do all the right things and they still find a way to lose. And Connor Hellebuyck made the big save there. He made another one big through traffic up high, hit him kind of in the collarbone area. Another good save there. So I think it's the little things that he does. But the analytics they speak for themselves. He's the best goalie in hockey, and I think, I don't have much else to add other than that. It's just, I don't know where the Jets would be without him. But I think, as good as the Jets have been this year, in the record and all that, I don't think they're the team they are without Connor Hellebuyck.
And this is a stat. Connor Hellebuyck heading into today's game at home was 9-4-0 with a 1.85 goals against average and a, get this, 941 save percentage along with 3 shutouts. So this guy's been protecting home, and that's taken into consideration the last 2 games.
Quick one here. Rob Somerville. Originally, Morrissey was given an assist on the in-house announcement. That assist has been taken away according to the official scoring. So Morrissey at 28 assists. He did not officially get a helper on that one unless something has changed here. We got about 10 minutes left here, fellas and
lots
ladies.
Lots of questions about Ehlers.
Okay, sorry. Before we get into Ehlers, and we'll get into that right now, we're still looking. I was still looking for the magical home field dig deeper comment of the game, folks. There've been a couple good ones, but I think you can do better. I think you can dig a little bit deeper here, in order to win that prize here. So, Jeff, with that in mind, let's go over to the Nikolai Ehlers update. Last seen on the ice. Stick handling and flipping saucer passes over to strength and conditioning coach Jake Wolf. A little bit of stick handling, but I did not see a lot of taxing skating, nor do we expect him to be, just in terms of a cautionary tale in terms of what the maybe anticipated return might be. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I thought that, people who would take Rick Bowness's comments, was it earlier today or yesterday or whatever it was?
Today, yep. 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah.
To talk, but he says it's going to be at least a couple or at least a few weeks. I think if you take that verbatim, I don't see Nikolai Ehlers coming back in 2 to 3 weeks. I think mid to late January for this injury, you have to be incredibly careful with this injury. It's not so much. I mean, look, a lot of it is I'm not saying there's certain players that could play through this injury, but there's certain players that have a harder time, with this injury, players that are like Nikolai Ehlers with speed and as you mentioned, a lot of east-west shiftiness to it. The issue with this injury can be, in a lot of cases, if you come back too early or if you exert yourself too hard, you'll rip open the surgery that was done, and then you have to start over from scratch. That's the biggest concern with hernia injuries, is that if you push it too hard too soon, that will all blow up in your face and you'll be right back to square one, back under the knife again. And I'm not saying that, I just think that it's one of those things where you need to where Bowness needs to temper expectations on when he's coming back, because I really do think it's such a slow process, such a patient process on getting back on the ice, that it seems like a really good sign, and it certainly is a good sign that he's back skating. But I don't know if I would be, I think this is going to be a very interesting rehab for him. I think it's going to be one of those things where you can't come up with a timeline, because before Rick Bowness said a couple or a few weeks or whatever he ended the answer with, he talked about it being a very different, not having a timeline. And that's the reality of these situations, is for an injury like this or recovery like this, you need to be extremely careful, because going a little bit too far, you can lose all the good work you had leading up to that point. So it's not really a great answer, but I will say I don't know if I'd be looking at an early January return. To me, I'm thinking 3-4 weeks minimum at this point to get back to where Nikolai Ehlers needs to get back to be the player that we all know that he is.
And to be honest, I think that Rick was saying that timeline in terms of when he would be back practicing with the team. I don't think he meant he'd be actually back playing games, but that was something that maybe got a little bit lost in translation there. Quick one, Scotty. Cole Perfetti, I think by my count, was used in overtime for the first time this season.
Yeah.
What'd you think, A, of the decision, and B, what you saw from the rookie forward today overall?
Yeah, I find that Cole Perfetti is, I don't know what the word is for it. He's so stable. Like it's really odd to watch a kid that's, what is he, 20 now? And, he didn't play the last, he had barely any time in the AHL, even though he played, how many games? We had 23 games maybe in the A that 1 year or something like that. He's just so bred for, the NHL game. I know he doesn't have the speed and all that, but he makes up that. He's so smart. He's so smart. At one of the guys in the game, he takes a pass and basically just looks off the defender, makes a nice curl, and gets the shot off. I think it was in the slot down here. Down here, as people can see that. But I think he's they just had another good game. I mean, it feels like we're talking about with Josh Morrissey, we're talking about the same things because he's just so consistent and doesn't make a lot of errors. Really smart on the back check. Really smart at judging where the puck's going to be. His vision, his awareness of kind of where is anticipation, I guess, of where the puck is going to go. That's what he's so good at. I kind of, Blake Wheeler was always really good at that, in my opinion, of really judging where the puck might go to, and just seeing the play kind of before it happened. I think Cole Perfetti has a lot of that, in what he did. In overtime, I thought he looked okay. I didn't think that line that was out, I think it was him. Was it him, Lowry, and Brendan Dillon? That line almost seemed like kind of just okay, give the other guys a breather for a bit before they get back out there.
And then Lowry stayed on, I think, right? And then Lowry was back
right, he
on
did,
for the.
yeah.
I think that it was an overlap shift, and then he got the drop pass.
Yeah.
The puck was turned over, and then Lowry dropped it to Kyle Connor for the shot.
So yeah, you'd like to see him more, but I think that also just screams how much trust that Rick Bowness has in Cole Perfetti to go out there in overtime, 3-on-3, where he might not be the fastest guy in the team, but he's going to protect the puck, right? And I think that's what he's really good at. And I like Cole Perfetti's game. I think he's a sneaky candidate for the Calder this year. I know Matty Beniers in Seattle is probably leading that race right now. But I think you have to put Cole Perfetti in there. What's his point total now? 17, 18 now, something like that.
He's in the conversation. I'm not sure he's the front runner. I think he's
I'm
in
not
the
saying
discussion.
He's the front runner, but he is in the discussion, right? And I think he's handled being a top 6 forward probably long before perhaps he should have been, right? Because you got to think this might have been his last year in junior right now. This year, he might have been playing with the Moose this year too. But this would only been his first year with the Moose. Well, he's 20. He could have played as an overager in the OHL.
Not a lot of first rounders play as an overagers.
I'm just saying. How many times did they send Mark Scheifele back? This team has done
2, not as a 20-year-old.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Fair point. But I think he would have been probably in the AHL this year. Now he's got, he's going. This would be his second full season essentially in the NHL. First really full one because he got injured last year. But I thought he's adapted to the game really well for being as young as he is, right? I don't know what else to say about him. He's just a good, solid player, and I think there's a good ceiling for Cole Perfetti to get to. And he's learning from 2 guys on his line that I think that will really help him with that game and how to improve.
Jeff, how about your thoughts on the rookie
forward? Rick Bowness isn't putting Cole Perfetti out in overtime as a cookie. He's putting him out there because he liked what he saw tonight. And I think what you saw from Cole Perfetti tonight is what you've seen from him, several times throughout this season. Maybe not his best game. We've seen certainly some moments this year where he's taken over plays and led to goals. But tonight I just thought he was smart. That's exactly what he was. To Scott's point, he's adaptable. He has the IQ. We can talk about the lack of speed. It's not like this guy's slow out there either. He's just not a Kyle Connor or a Nikolai Ehlers. He's more of a playmaker. He sees the game better than a lot of players out there. And what I think is part of that is his ability to not just adapt but to learn, right? There's a lot. To your point, Scott, about where he could be playing right now. This is a guy who massively benefited from COVID, and in an era,
like
in a league where nobody else, nobody else would look at this at COVID as a benefit. Cole Perfetti finds himself as one of the few, obviously having, being able to play for the Moose, being able to compete at a world championship, to get that experience, to get that confidence. And particularly when it comes to reading and adapting to the game, I mean, this is a guy who earlier in the season, Scott Arniel and others, Scott Arniel is a defensive coach, but, Brad Lauer and the whole coaching staff have been on him to change the way he plays in the offensive zone, particularly around the boards. I mean, this is a guy who was doing a lot of stuff that you were doing in junior, even this year, where you're turning your back to the player. Well, in the NHL, that's not going to work. They're going to drive right through you. And for a guy who's gone through, already a couple injuries over his, young career, he adapted well to that, and he doesn't do that anymore. And so this, I think it's going to be a fascinating trajectory for him. I think it's going to be he's going to be a big piece of this team moving forward. He's just going to get better because he's kind of like Mark Scheifele light, in the sense that he, loves the game, eats and breathes the game, wants to get better in all areas. And speaking of Mark Scheifele, anyone that shows up to practice a little bit early or a morning skate, they're always working on stuff together. They're working on puck retrievals on the boards. They're always talking. And so that's part of this new culture thing too, and I don't think a lot of it, I'm not saying none of it was happening in previous years, but I think it's more of a collective effort to coach each other up. And I think, not only does Cole Perfetti have a lot to learn in that respect, but I think he's got a lot to teach too. And that's where that give and take goes, where the younger guys are learning from the older guys and vice versa.
Yeah,
beautiful.
And just to add one more, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just thought, you remember all the times he got hit earlier in the season, right? Like 3 times, I think, in 3 separate games, he got drilled from behind. You see a lot of players, I think, especially at Cole's age, that might kind of retreat a little bit in his game. And I didn't think he ever did that, right? I think on a couple of the hits, he was challenged on them. You got to turn. You can't turn at that last moment and all that. I just think, again, we're kind of talking about the same thing, but I just think he's really learned how to play within the game on the fly. Not everybody can do that, right? Not everybody can, adapt the way that he has. He's very much, was it a chameleon or whatever? He's very good at just adapting to his surroundings and learning on the fly. It is. I think, like Jeff said, the trajectory is it could be incredible for him. So.
And we're going to hand out the Home Field Dig Deeper Award to BA Split, on a day where the technical difficulties were at the plenty of great hockey comments from many people, but on a day when technical difficulties, which have been a part of the brand from the very beginning, Sean was on assignment trying to join us. The little connection was struggling, and at the start of the show, you're right, BA Split. I did look like someone struggling to get all the technology worked out here, but that's the way it goes. We powered through, and you know what? That's why I'm, if you can't make fun of yourself, you shouldn't be making fun of anyone at all. So our thanks to Homefield for marketing and more. You could reach them at myhomefield.ca. That's myhomefield.ca. Okay, we're over an hour, folks. Gonna go one last time. Jeff, anything else? Any other topics we need to attack here? Quick one.
I just saw some people asking. I think it's more of a guessing game at this point, but with the back-to-back coming up here, do you see David Riddick getting into one of these games, and where do you see that game being? Do you see it Vancouver to start off, or do you see it against what has been a pretty surprising Seattle Kraken outfit this year?
It's an interesting question. I think traditionally they've gone starter then backup.
Yeah.
I would say that my only counter to that would be, Hellebuyck had 2 outings where he wasn't maybe at his very sharpest. Then he played well today. So it's possible that if Wade Flaherty believes the benefit would come from this 2-day break and then playing on Sunday, that it's possible Riddick could go against Vancouver. But we saw the similar scenario last year, and it was Hellebuyck against Seattle on the front end and Comrie against Vancouver on the back end. So I think it will be Connor on Saturday for the hockey night game, and I think it'll be Riddick against the Seattle Kraken. Though it wouldn't surprise me if they flip-flopped, but I think they'll continue to ride with Connor Hellebuyck on the front end and ask the backup to do what backups are often asked to do, which is to play the back end of the back-to-back. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that too. I think you want to get off on a strong start. Vancouver is well documented their season this year. It's been up and down, but they're a capable team, and I think David Riddick is a capable goalie. So put him in against a competition like that. Hopefully if he does get in with the Seattle game, that the guys in front of him give him a bit more run support than he's been used to this season. But certainly I think I would start off with Connor Hellebuyck on that Saturday night game. And as you mentioned, that's the role of the backup goalie. You got to get off the plane at, early mornings of the early hours of the morning, wake up and get ready to play a game. So certainly I'm on the same page with you.
Scotty, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, he's played them twice already this season, has he not? I believe he's played them both times that they've been in Seattle already. So
they've only been in Seattle
once. In one sense, yeah. Sorry, the one he played him already in Seattle. They won 3-2 in overtime. I believe that game was. But I agree. I think they're going to run with Hellebuyck again because he's got his game back, right? And I just don't see any reason why they wouldn't. And then whoever they play next Tuesday here, Ottawa. Yeah, then Hellebuyck could play that game. But yeah,
and Rick's also going to get one of the two before Christmas too, right? He's going to get either Boston or Washington. Most likely it'll be Washington. Yeah. So, quick one too. I know we've been going a little bit overtime, but that's why Jeff's here. We go overtime when Jeff's here. Quick thought on quick thought on the fourth line. Kevin Stenlund, I thought was very good on Tuesday in his Jets debut. Today, 16 shifts for 10-22, one shot on goal, 50% in the circle. And really interesting, I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but man, oh man, Rick Bowness did not hold back in his interview with Paul Edmonds on the Coach's Corner on CJOB here. Paul said, well, Paul framed it as, did you possibly move a young, center and David Gustafsson over to take some of the responsibility off of him? And he flat out said he didn't like the job Gustafsson had been doing at center. That's why he moved him to the wing. Basically put him on notice, and as Rick has told us on countless times, if he's willing to say it in an interview on the host broadcaster or the rights holder, you can be sure he's told David that he needs more offense. So just the 3 assists, we know David Gustafsson. He did point out his excellent work on the penalty kill, which was again on display this evening. But man, it sounded like to me like David Gustafsson was put on notice. What do you guys think overall of the fourth line? And secondly, sort of the aside to that, Sam Gagner promoted today, and Mikey Asimont did not get a lot of shifts. He had only 7:46 of ice time, 12 in the game, but I think 2 or 3 in the third period, and he got his rotation got skipped quite regularly. So that's one long-winded way of saying, A, what'd you think of the fourth line, and B, and Scotty, this is not a this is not a put it in Sharpie shot at you, but I'll leave Mikey Asimont to you.
Do we not know you're
hang on a second?
I'm not going to do this but comment.
Yeah.
I just don't want you to take it personally.
Hit you, but I'm gonna. Yeah. Okay. I'm like Michael Jordan though. I took that.
Okay.
Whatever the quote is that he does. Yeah.
Perfect. Jeff, start with the fourth line in general, and then Scotty weave into the Asimont. Whether he could also be sick, it's important to note that maybe he was one of those players that has been under the weather with the flu that's been ripping through. But Jeff, start with the fourth line. And
I think this is, a couple comments here already. I think they're nailing it. I mean, this is the level of accountability that we've seen from Rick Bowness since he got here, really day one and throughout the regular season so far. And, this is nothing that he hasn't already told David Gustafsson. That's the thing, right? I mean, he'd been praising the fourth line through the first half of this season so far, talking about how consistent they've been, talking about how, in the same breath of everyone needs to look the same, it was talking about the top six having to play more like the bottom six, and particularly the fourth line. So it's not a surprise at all that when you look at some of the performances from the fourth line, a couple goals against the other game, was it the Washington game that they were on for two goals against?
Yes.
They're all blending in now. I mean, of course,
that was the game.
You can't be, patting these guys on the back. They might not be getting paid as much as the top end guys, but they're certainly as important and responsible for their level of play as everybody else. And so to me, I mean, I just, I look at a guy like Stenlund, and I'm not 100% sure. He might have done some great things, and I just thought it was Blake Wheeler. But there was one particular play that I made a note here that when he drew that penalty against Ryan Johansson, right? I mean, that was
I totally thought that was Wheeler.
We all did.
Yeah, so did I.
And so I think the fact that Rick Bowness is challenging the fourth line and not hiding the fourth line, I think is massive. And this is a warning to David Gustafsson that there's other guys that are looking to get in the lineup here, and we need your best, not just on the penalty kill, but throughout the lineup. And I think I'll let Scott go on the Michael Esimont. Esimont is his last name pronunciation. Ace, like the cards. Anyways, I think that Rick Bowness has been doing this all season long. He is a guy who understands the flow of the game. He understands who's going, who's ticking, who needs to go, and he knows when when guys need to be promoted and when guys need to be demoted during the game. So whether there's an illness or just a lack of stellar play, this is what Rick Bowness has brought to this team. Everybody is accountable to each other, and if you're not rolling in your particular position, you're going to hear about it, not just on the ice, but afterwards and in the media. And that's a refreshing take for what we've had in this city for a long time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Rick Bowness has said that he wants his team to be a 4-line team, and he's stuck with it. I mean, I think that's, he's talked about every team that wins the Stanley Cup has 4 lines, right? That they can go to and that they trust. And so, yeah, it has been, I think. As far as Michael Esimont goes, either he's sick and we don't know it yet, or, I didn't necessarily think his game was that bad tonight, but I didn't also see the tenacity that he's had. And I wonder, are you going to hold that against Michael Esimont all the time? Like, he's had so many good games that we've been praising this guy for his play, going from the 4th line to the 3rd to now the top line, and then getting, done. But there's just going to be a game where like every other player in this league and every other player on this team, it's just not their night. So if that was tonight, fair point, and fair play to Rick Bowness for seeing that and moving guys around. That's one of the hallmarks of the way that Rick Bowness coaches. He's not afraid to get the blender out. He does it almost every game, win or lose sometimes. He tries to do different things, tries to play the matchup, tries to, if the winger's not going here, he goes there, that sort of thing. But I'm leaning towards the illness more than anything, because I haven't seen Michael Esimont take a night off yet. And so did he take tonight off, or just didn't have it in the tank to go? I mean, that's, that remains up for I guess, debate, or, at least a question to Rick Bowness in the next couple of days, just to kind of see where he's at with that. But
and just quickly on
we'll
that,
see.
So his last shift was at 4:06 of the 3rd period. It was a 13-second shift, 12-second shift, or 17 seconds. And he also, just out of the 12 shifts, 2 of his shifts were under 20 seconds. So
that feels more like illness than anything.
To me too, yeah.
That could also be stoppage in time, and
true, yeah.
And the other thing, and on that 3rd period shift, I don't know if it was that one or the one before, but he had given up the puck. He had given up the puck on the sideboards in a bad play, and it was a turnover. And I think Rick Bowness is the kind of guy who goes, okay, I start seeing a couple of these, misplays in the defensive zone. I'm not going to give you time to catch up. We need to win this game. It's a 1-1 game,
I just thought when Dubois got injured, or when Dubois missed time,
it's risky because of the back-to-back. Hang on a second. It's risky with the back-to-back Saturday, Sunday coming up.
Dad.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. Just just hang on a second. I'll get back to you. We want to try to finish the point here. I mean, to Jeff's point, I agree with that as well, for sure. They're always going to worry about the other games later on, but also too, it's just a situation where the Jets can't afford to be taxed. going into the weekend here. They're playing 16-30, so I have a hard time believing that Rick is going down to 4 lines 4 minutes into the third period, unless he either doesn't like the look of the line or if the player is a little bit under the weather. But, I mean, Asamont wasn't sick in the morning. He was on the ice, unlike Morgan Barron and Jansen Harkins. So, anyways, sorry, you were saying.
No, it's okay. I'll get in line. So all these people think that I never fight back.
It's your turn in line.
Yeah,
that's why I went to you.
We have epic rants, but anyways, it's I agree.
Not today.
Like,
today we don't.
Well, yeah, we don't have time for that. But anyways, so yeah, whatever. I mean, I think at some point Esamont wasn't going to have a good game, and if that was tonight, then fair point. I think they'll go back to him though. If that's the case, and if not, see how it goes. But I still think the Sharpie's there, so I'm not backing off that one.
The Sharpie was a bold prediction, and
it was bold point. It was a bold point Sharpie.
Well, so. It was definitely a bold prediction, and for a good chunk of it, you had a good. It was looking good for a long time.
It was a Logan Stanley Zdeno Chara.
Let's just wait a little bit longer. I think pencil would have been the wise call. Pen we could have allowed because of the able to blank it out if you had to. But we'll see. And sometimes it's good to be bold, and that's what we appreciate you. And one other thing we appreciate is our long list of sponsors here. That's why the shows are able to happen and we were able to invest, and we appreciate your investment in the chat room. We appreciate your investment, Jeff and Scott, and we appreciate the sponsors that have been in our corner here, including the OGs from the Johnston Group, Trans-Canada Brewing Company, Lou Furland, Home Field for Marketing and More, and the good folks over at Vittorio Rossi Clothiers on Corridon. So thanks to all of them.
Are we forgetting Cambrian?
Cambrian is in a rotation, but we do appreciate their.
Sorry.
Yep, it's okay, but
no free ads, bud.
Sorry.
We do appreciate their support as well. And once again,
trying to make sure you don't forget one. So,
Scotty, I appreciate you. Yes, we will continue this conversation on Saturday when the Jets are opening a 2-game road trip in Vancouver, and then some of you will also join us on Sunday for the Kenny and Renny Christmas party and post-game show where we discuss that game between the Jets and Seattle Kraken at Trans-Canada Brewing Company starting at 6 p.m. The game will start at 7. Thanks again for watching and for listening. Have a great evening and have a great weekend, everyone. Good night.